Hi, we're out on our range today, and once again, no, you haven't won a prize. That's a scam. Now, recently, Robert from Keystone Holsters, that's KeystoneHolsters.com, we'll post a link in the description, and in case we don't get a link posted, feel free to post one. Anyway, Robert contacted me asking if they could make me a custom holster that I would evaluate. So I told him that if he could make a holster for my Ruger 5.7 that would fit on my LBE belt, that would be great. So they made one, sent it to me, and here we are. Now, a side note is, evaluating a holster takes me a while because I have to have a chance to work with it and carry it, especially a holster like this that can be technique sensitive. We also had a little bit of a setback in that the state in which I reside passed some law making it really questionable as to whether or not I could take my Ruger 5.7 off my property. Well, luckily a court struck down that law. So, having had time to work with it, getting rid of that law, here we are. And so we'll take a look at this holster and I can tell you what I think of it. And let's start with a close-up of what it looks like. Now, when you take a look at this holster, one of the first things you notice is that it sticks away from my body a little bit. Not so much that it becomes ridiculous, but enough that I'm not going to get the pistol caught on my clothing. We also have the leg retention strap, and this strap is stretchy. And the buckle is right here. And I have found that when wearing something like this, a buckle will tend to migrate and it can become difficult to find. This one will not. There's a peg through that strap keeping it in place. The buckle will always be right there. Now, the way this holster works is you press the thumb brake toward your body and then bring the pistol out. It must be kept in mind that this is not a competition yank rig. It's a security holster. Now, in talking about this being a security holster, of course I have to keep in mind that I'm not a police officer. I don't have to be standing here talking to someone, keeping my eyes on them, while at the same time being aware of everything that's going on around me. In this environment, there shouldn't be anybody any closer than about 200 meters. So for me, if I wanted to keep that security strap out of the way, the friction of this holster keeps the pistol in place perfectly sufficiently. And going into a different situation, I might put the retention strap in place. But let me show you a close-up of a really cool feature of this holster. Now, here's our holster, and of course it covers the trigger. It also covers the ambidextrous safety on the Ruger 5.7. But the really cool feature I want to show you is how this attaches to the belt. You fold down that little safety, press these two together, and it comes off the belt. Very easy to take off and put on the belt, so I don't have to slide it over any of my buckles or suspenders or anything else, and that is really handy. Now, one other thing that's unrelated, but I know people will ask. This is an M1 carbine mag pouch. These Ruger 5.7 magazines are about the same width and similar thickness to M1 carbine magazines, but they're too long. This won't snap, so what I had to do is cut a flap off one, sew it to the other, and now I have a really handy mag pouch for Ruger 5.7 or FN 5.7 magazines. And no, this is not an original mag pouch. This is a new reproduction. I didn't destroy an antique. Now, the really useful thing about this feature of how it goes on and off the belt is when I'm using my whole LBV, if I wanted to carry a pistol other than my Beretta 92FS, I'd have to take this holster off. And this holster does it differently than the Keystone holster, but it's got the same kind of idea of I can take this off. But then if I wanted to carry a pistol like my Ruger Mark III in some old school leather holster, what I'd have to do is unhook all of this stuff, take the buckle off, slide this on. It would be prohibitively time consuming. However, this is a hunter holster. You undo this snap, and it accomplishes the same thing. It's just the grandpa version of the same kind of idea. Very handy, and that's why I've always liked holsters like this. But the way they do it with the Keystone holster just updates that idea for the 21st century. And for me, it's a big plus. Now I've got a target set up at 10 yards, and I want to see how quickly I can get this pistol out of the holster and into action. I'm going to take it as axiomatic that if I do not have the retention piece in place, I'm just going with the friction grip, that's going to be pretty easy. But with the retention piece in place, I have to remember that first push with the thumb, then pull the pistol out of the holster. If I do this too quickly, I can pull it first and it gets hung up. Now, as far as doing that, it can be done pretty quickly, but it must be remembered that it's push, then pull. Those two are not done at the same time. So, let's see if I can do this correctly. Oh, side note, part of my presentation is moving both hands at once. One reaches for the pistol while the other one comes out in front. There's always someone that says, when you put your hand out there, it's a tell. No, reaching for my pistol is the tell. This doesn't really alert anyone when my other hand is simultaneously reaching for the pistol. Okay. See, that hung up right there. And this pistol in this holster, because of where it's angled, sometimes it can be a hassle to remember exactly where it is, because I'm not accustomed to something that sticks out that far, even though I've worked with this a fair amount. Let's take a close-up look at the target. And here's our group. That's 2 hits. These hits up here, I could see those as I was shooting. Those were happening when I was bobbling the presentation just a little bit. But altogether, not too bad. Now there's something I need to add. Remember, this is not a concealed carry holster. It's meant to be carried on some kind of gun belt or duty belt. It's meant to be open carried in the field. And it is not a competition yank rig. It's a retention holster. So in doing that live fire exercise, you notice that the target was lower than me and I was on uneven ground. I did that intentionally to create field shooting conditions as opposed to just range shooting conditions. And it showed. As I bring the pistol out, trying to get it back in the holster, it didn't always go in quite the way I wanted it to because I was on uneven ground. And you've got to put that kind of thing into the process if you're talking about a holster you're going to use in the field. Okay, that having been said, what are the takeaways from this today? Well, I've worked with this holster quite a bit, and I can see that I need to work with it more. There is definitely a learning curve with this holster. Getting your hand in the right place, making sure that you're pushing, then pulling. Remembering to put the retention strap back in place after you get it back in the holster. This has a fairly steep learning curve. Keeping that in mind, I find this holster comfortable to wear. The components seem very high quality. The way it goes on and off the belt is about the greatest thing I've ever seen in a holster. So I'm going to say this. Is it the right holster for me? Once I work with it just a little bit more, yes. Is it the right holster for you? You be the judge. So as always, don't try this at home and what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the KeystoneHolsters.com holster review.